Welcome to the Meetup. Today is the September iPhone Meetup. We have two presentations today. The first one is going to be by myself on an iOS app that I was working on. And the second is going to be by Daniel. He's going to do the whole UX user testing workshop to give you some guidance on how to use a small group of people to figure out how you can improve your app. So that's the main plan. Then after, I will have some time for if you have any specific iOS questions or best practice stuff you want to talk about, and then also just general discussion after that. So I'll get started with my presentation. Okay. So this is called Building a Map Pin Detail Animation. And so this, I work at Jackrabbit, and we're a consulting company that builds and designs iOS and Android apps. And Monday through Thursday, we work on client projects, but Fridays we set aside to work on side projects or further education, meetup talks, all that kind of stuff. And so one of the things that I worked on last month on my Fridays was together with the team at Praetorian. They're also kind of a startup company, but they're in the information security industry. Their office is over in the Capitol Tower, and what they were doing the last few months is, as kind of one of their side projects, is they got a Raspberry Pi with 2 radio receivers and a GPS receiver, and put it in a hexcopter drone, and flew it around town and collected some data. And the actual data that they were able to collect was mostly from IoT devices. With all these IoT devices that people are installing in their homes and offices, they all communicate over radio frequencies. And so if you're able to get close enough to them, you can read all of the stuff they're sending out. And there's basically no encryption, nothing on any of these systems. So they're able to fly around and collect a bunch of data, and they provided me with that data in the form of JSON. And then up there on the right, we have a picture of the hexcopter drone. They're going to come out with a video pretty soon. What they actually did is they flew around with the hexcopter drone, and they had a quadcopter drone following it, filming it. So I'm looking forward to seeing that video. And then the final product that we're trying to make is basically just a standard map with some pins and then a display of this information. So they have information about the manufacturer of the devices. They know the channels that they were broadcasting on. They know if there's any security, those types of things. And so I wanted to build an app to display this, and that's something I did. It's on the App Store now, so I'll have a link at the end. And doing this project, I kind of figured out 2 things I'd like to share that are kind of useful techniques. And I'm going to go into a little bit of how the mapping works to show you those 2 techniques. So this is the actual finished app, what it looks like. It's just a map with lots of pins. Each pin represents a device that the drone was able to discover. And whenever you tap on it, it brings in all the detailed information that we know about it. So here we've got manufacturer, protocol, source, channel, security, that stuff. And so the first thing that, this finished app is on GitHub. So there's the whole source code's available. So anything that I showed today, you can go and look and see the details of exactly how it works if you want to use this for your own app. So that's at github.com/davidolish/IoT map, and I'll send that out in the meetup recap, so you'll have it there. But so going back to this video that we have here, the first thing I want to do is take all those features that we have that the drone discovered and just map them on a map. So to do that, first I'm going to show you real quick what the class looks like for these features. Hopefully you can read that. But it's really standard, just an NS object with a latitude number, a longitude number, a title, and then a description HTML. And the description HTML contains all the information that gets displayed in the bottom. So all we want to do is basically take all of these objects and display them on the map. So to do that, we're just going to do a standard for loop. And so to do a map annotation on iOS, you just create a point annotation. You set its coordinates, which we have in the map data feature that we got from the JSON. We set a title, we add it to the map, and we show the annotation. So that is the steps for that. Can everyone read that? Yeah, I should probably. Okay, that's makes it a little hard to talk about. Let's see. So since we can't talk about, or since you can't read that, I'm just going to open it in Xcode, and we will look at it in Xcode. Yeah, so let's do this. It's usually better. Is that better? More readable? Or maybe everyone could just move forward. Can y'all read that? Okay. So, and then, yeah, so it's actually the wrong one. There we go. So here we have that class, and then let's go to the. Okay. So here, yes, it's now. Anyway, so this is what we had here on our slide. We had this section here, and so let me go through it again real quick. So whenever we've parsed our data features, we just loop through each of the features and we create a pin. And on each pin, we set the coordinates and we set the title, since those are two properties that are available on each pin. And then we add the pin to the map view. And then once we've looped through all those, we now have map pins for each of our data features we discovered. And then we call show annotations, and that zooms the map view to the correct region and zoom level so that they're all on the map. And so if we then run this app, we'll be able to see our pins on the map. So this version we're on here doesn't have the nice styling on it, but it does. It's just running. Some. This is the standard iOS. The standard. And let me get rid of some more of, or comment this out to demo that hasn't been written yet. So if we now run our app, we'll have all of our pins on there, and then they'll zoom to the region where they're all shown. And then if you zoom in, you can tap on one of them to see the title, but we don't actually display the details yet. And so what we want to do next then is we want to implement this method, which gets called whenever a user taps on a pin. And so at that point, we'll then be able to pop in our thing and set the HTML to the one that we have in our data. But the problem that we kind of encounter here is that we know what the map view is and we know what pin got touched, but we don't actually know the underlying data anymore because it's been lost. We generated these pins, we added them to the map, but we no longer know which underlying data belongs to that pin. And so the approach that I came up with was, wouldn't it be great if up here we had kind of like a selection block, like if each of the annotations that we create could have a selection block that just runs whenever the pin is selected. And so the first tip that I have today is how you could add a selection block. So this is an MK point annotation, which is an iOS thing. And if you go look at the details, you can see we can set a coordinate, but there's no option to set anything else. So what I did was I made a category. In this category, I just simply added the property that I wanted this to have. And I declared that from now on, MK point annotations are going to have a selection block. And then I was able to then go back to my view controller and just say, now it has a selection block. And in the selection block, it's going to take the HTML for this model object, and it's just going to load it into the web view. So with that done, I kind of had to hook it up down here. So whenever did select annotation gets called, I say, if there's a selection block, run the selection block. So if we run the app with that in there, then it will again show all our pins. And if I tap on one of them, it'll load the HTML into the web view. But which is great, but we can't see the web view yet. So the next tip then is how do we make the web view come in, and how do we make that animate nicely? And so to figure that out, we go over to our web view. We can see, yes, so we've got this map view and we've got this web view. These are stacked on top of each other. So we've got a map, and then below we've got a web view. But then if you look into here, you can see that the height of the web view is 0. And so that's why we can't see it. And so what we'd like to do is whenever a user taps on a pin, we then bring it up. And we increase that height to like around 200. And then if they tap off, then we animate it back down to 0. And so to do that, you simply add a outlet here that's connected from this constraint to the view controller. And so I've called this one double underscore annotation description web view height. And so now I'll have access to that constraint within my view controller. And so if we go back to here, you'll see these two lines are where the actual animation happens. So it's basically just 2 lines required. The first is setting the constant to the new value that you want. And then simply calling layout if needed, which will recalculate the positioning and sizes of everything inside of the animation block. And so if we run that, we'll then get our same set of pins. But if we tap on a pin, it will now reposition to include the web view and bring it up in. So, and then it's also because the way that's set up, it'll also, sometimes, or maybe a different approach would like cover up over the map view. And so, if you select a pin down here, it would get covered. But in here instead, if you tap on it, it resizes everything, and so it'll move that up to make sure that you can be able to view both things at once. And yeah, so going back to the presentation, I had that, and then yeah, so we got these. Yep, and then so that is now the desired paper. So if you zoom in here, you can easily browse any of these pins. You can see what's located there. It'll bring in your web view down there, and then the pins are all connected. So then if you go look at it here, with the nice styling added, it then looks like that. Cool. And so, like I said before, that is the code is available on GitHub, and the link to the App Store to download the app is down there, and I'll include both of those in the recap. So, any questions? Yes.
How come you call that double underscore on that one variable? Why do you do that?
Why do I do that? So that's a convention I use for layout constraint outlets. Usually, or often, you'll have at least 10 or more of them, and because of the naming will be like description box height, or description box like leading, or description
so
box.
So the double underscore just means it's a constant for a constraint in the
Yes, yeah. So it's not a requirement by Apple. It's just
no, I know. I'm just curious.
Yeah. So so that's and mostly because it would be confusing if if you want to access the description box. It's kind of you're doing that, but then the underscores will be just layout constraints. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Cool.
Any other questions? Yes.
I tried to listen really well, but so you submit it to the App Store,
Yes.
and it's just, is the data packaged in the app, or does it never change? Is it like
Yes.
retrieving the data from someplace?
Yes. So I didn't cover that really, but yeah, we can show you right here. We have it is coming from a web service, and so we've got a model, on our model, we've got a web service, and it's actually just hosted at this URL, and it downloads it and then parses the dictionaries into a model object.
So they update that occasionally?
Yeah, so so it's not like live update or anything, but they do add. So here they first did downtown, and then they went over to some different areas and added those at a later date. Yeah.
Here's a stupid question. What does IoT stand for?
Internet of Things. Yeah, so that's kind of the buzzword right now for devices that connect to other devices, can be controlled remotely. So really popular, if you look at these pins, are the Philips lighting. They're really popular, and those are lights that you can screw into any, or they're bulbs that you can screw into any light fixture, and then you can control them remotely. So if you can be far away from home, you can turn off your lights, turn them on. You can program them in lots of interesting ways.
Cool.
Yes.
How come you chose to use HTML?
Yeah, so that was what they were using. So they, the Praetorian guys, they also made like a JavaScript site where they were displaying this information. So they basically, like when I was talking to them and they said, oh, we have this information, you can use it. And so, yeah, definitely wouldn't prefer HTML. And actually in the version that's nicer that I submitted to the App Store, that version actually parses the HTML to get things out so I can put them into labels, because it's a lot easier to make labels look nice than HTML in a web view.
That's a description field that has the HTML on it?
Yes.
Yeah, I was looking at the call.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it makes it nice because you can, it displays perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really quick. Really quick to do. Yep. And so yeah, with the constraints, you can also like animate width and height. You can animate proportional sizes between things. Basically anything that's supported by auto layout, you can animate, and you can go between any two states. Yep. Well, thank you. Next up, we're going to have Daniel with his presentation. And thank you for listening.
Howdy, y'all. So, my name's Daniel. I'm actually, confession, I'm not a iOS developer, but I specialize in UX design. So David asked me to come in and kind of talk about some like process stuff that we've been working on to kind of be more collaborative, work more lean, and kind of integrate different disciplines together. So we kind of made a little workshop to introduce you all to how this could work and how this is working with us. And it's actually based on a workshop that was designed at the Stanford D School for introducing executives to design thinking. So I've brought a couple friends who are going to help out and be able to answer questions. And is this just AirPlay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Classroom.
I was like looking for an adapter. All right, cool. So just to be something to think about, this so we're gonna be partnering up and also try to be thinking about the last time that you gave a gift. Which room is this?
Classroom.
Cool. Okie dokie. So yeah, this is a crash course user interviews. I'm gonna actually get some of my friends to think about some packets here while we're going through this. And also there's gonna be some Sharpies. So just a note on the Sharpies, don't worry too much about fidelity. We're gonna be writing and sketching and stuff, so definitely don't concern yourself with being an artist, and don't concern yourself with definitely don't concern yourself with trying to be perfect. Try and be concise and try and be as quick as possible. So the idea is to just basically have a good time and just be in charge of this process. So like I was saying, I'm Dan Shipley. I'm the UX lead at Jackrabbit Mobile. Our friend over here, Adam Ziner, is a product designer over at Razorfish. Peter is a design lead at Harvest, which is a startup in the accelerator here. And Cody Alder is a designer at Spacecraft, which is a really cool startup. Y'all should check them out. So like I was saying, this exercise was originally designed at Stanford D School, and we've kind of adapted it for a little bit shorter time span. So it should feel a little bit stressful. It should feel like we're interrupting you, and it should kind of feel like you're going a little bit too fast. So again, our challenge today, we're gonna redesign the gift-giving experience for your partner. So you're not gonna try and redesign the last gift that they gave, but you're trying to design the experience of giving the gift itself. So from the beginning of where they conceived of needing to give a gift, all the way through to getting a thank you letter or perhaps not getting a thank you letter. So in your head, try and imagine the last time you did this, and with some fidelity. It doesn't have to be the exact last time, but the last time that you really, really remember the whole process. So we're gonna actually be interviewing each other and really digging deep into this. So, basically our milestones, we're gonna go through all of this really, really quickly. We're gonna go through an interview. We're gonna capture our findings from this interview. We're gonna kind of restate the challenge and frame it. And we try to generate a lot of ideas. We're gonna try and share the solutions that we've come up with, get a little bit of feedback, hone down on a specific solution, and then we're going to storyboard out this solution. So the beginning, the middle, and the end of this solution itself, the experience of using the solution. And finally, we'll have a little bit of analysis where our partner will analyze what we have done. So it's basically like post-launch user feedback. So at this stage, we're going to ask you guys to go ahead and partner up. And if there's an odd person out, just go ahead and grab one of the facilitators in the back. So just take your time.
There's three of those things.
One last thing I forgot to ask, did everyone get a packet and a writing pencil?
I didn't get it right.
Can you get that bag? Might be a bag. No, it's right here. I'll call it. Alright, cool. So has everyone managed to partner up at this stage? Alright, cool. If you have already started going ahead, that's awesome, but let's try and not start the full exercise just yet, because it's going to be time. So, fair warning. Alright, so is everyone partnered up and good? Yeah. Looks like everyone's good. Everyone looking good, Adam? Alright, so we're going to be timing this on this little thing called the time timer. It's a little bit small to the right side.
I have a question about
It's already going. Try and do it off. Sorry. Alright, so I'm going to start a timer right now, and the first person who is going to actually be the interviewer, I'm going to call you from now on participant A, and we're going to give you 4 minutes to actually run through the interview and just talk through the last time that you your partner gave a gift. So I'm going to put 4 minutes on this time timer, and it'll do a light buzz at the end. So if you can, try and keep an eye on it right here. So 4 minutes on the timer.
Experience was very happy to see so when you start
About half time or so, remember, try and write down quotes if you can, or any findings in the little box, because you're going to be using them later.
How would you describe?
Oh, gosh, terrible.
If you all get caught, ask someone to give you an example of the last time. Like ask an example or ask how it loud.
You shift the direction to it. So shift the direction.
I did not wrap it. Yeah. Well,
So that is the end of the participant A interviewing participant B. At this point, we're going to add another 4 minutes to the time timer and ask that participant B interview participant A. So you're just switching roles and asking another person to go through the experience. So a whole dedicated 4 minutes.
To me, that's and then I got it was like right. I know like first yeah, that's what I mean. Right. I knew it since I didn't know things that
Are they anticipating these?
No. Yeah. We appreciate that. But I can get
Alright, so finish up real quick and then we're going to move on to the next exercise. Alright, so are y'all ready? We're going to move on to the next exercise where we're going to have 2 minutes to try and capture our findings. And this one, there we go. Okay, so we're going to capture our findings into these two key groupings. So we're basically going to be looking to have what we think our partners' goals are, and then other key insights that we might think help us design a solution. So I'm going to put 2 minutes on this, and we're going to try and just rapidly choose what we think was the most meaningful finding and and put them in these categories.
It often helps to have these handy.
Yeah, and you switch back and forth between them.
We're not asking, we're just deriving this from what we already
Yes, this is an individual, and you're just kind of distilling this based on your own analysis and your own kind of perspective. What's up, y'all? We're doing like this. At this stage, basically, we've just gone through one interview. Do you guys know each other right now? Okay, cool. Do you have any idea if you guys ever did each other? Sure. Your function is different. Okay, well, just kind of, at this point, basically, we're trying to basically analyze what we think are our partners' goals, and we might think about interesting things that might help us give a gift. So we're actually right here on this page. we're gonna interview, it's totally fine. This whole process is kind of approaching in a fashion here. You can totally bounce it. Just grab a seat and just try and take your best guess about your partner's goals. Maybe the last giving a gift, something about if I'm intrigued in you, I'm trying to imagine the last time you gave a gift to someone else. Basically. Well, actually switching on to this next exercise right now. So at this point, we're going to have another 2 minutes where we're trying to choose a specific goal in a specific one of these goals or insights to hone in on. So we're actually going to kind of reframe this challenge. We're going to state our partner's name. We're going to pick one of these goals or a grouping of these goals, and we're gonna, that we think is the most meaningful. We're gonna state it, and then we're going to kind of frame it in a challenging way in the challenge statement down there. And also, it helps to circle one of the centered sections. So in this context, in the example, it would say, Jen needs to give a meaningful gift early because she absolutely hates lines and doesn't want to be embarrassed about giving a poor gift. Just kind of use your imagination on stage. There's no good other interview where we can kind of physically confuse one so much. This is an exercise to kind of introduce collaborative learning and design process. So the different also getting ourselves. If you have any specific questions for me, anything that we can do to kind of help fill in the boxes, please grab me or Adam or any of the other kind of designers that's covering it out. So we're about done restating our challenge. If you don't have anything, just take a stab at it. This is just basically your favorite finding, the most meaningful finding that you had. So at this stage, this is basically the most exciting fun part. We are going to take 5 minutes and try and generate 5 ideas. We want to have a really diverse, wide set of ideas for new ways that our partner could give a gift, or ways that we could improve or optimize the gift-giving process that we have just learned about from our partner. So try and be as divergent and have as broad of ideas as possible. Just sketch out 5 ideas, try and go as fast as possible, and you should feel stressed and rushed. Kind of the deadline is critical. All right, so I'm gonna put 5 minutes on the timer right now. Here we go. If possible, try not to use alphanumeric characters. Try and really focus in on creating forms, and even if it's just stick figures, that's totally actually great. I'm sure you guys all XKCD. Just try and use the other side of your brain, if possible, as much as possible. Feel free to get very diverse. It doesn't have to be grounded in reality at all.
Like even if you don't think it's a good idea, if it's not intricate, just jot it down. The more ideas you have, the more inspiration you have.
Absolutely. For example, in the workshop we did last week, we had an idea around basically AT-ATs used to circumvent traffic, but that led to some really interesting insights about gaining metrics and analytics based on traffic. So these divergent ideas can lead you in very strange places. Just kind of roll with it if you possibly can. I know it's try and be as relaxed and chill as possible. I know it can get very stressful, but no one's going to be evaluating this. It's totally fine. It's basically just a different way to try and make sense of your mind. That's perfect. Perfect.
I draw stick figures too.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. If you're spending a lot of time trying to make it look good, that's probably wrong way. Just go ham.
Makes you feel any better? I went to art school. These are my drawings.
So it's not a matter of good bad. Knowing your limitations.
But yeah, really the focus is just being lean and fast. So it's not at all trying to be elegant or anything. So we've got about a minute left. Just try and get whatever you can out, even if it's totally crazy. The more insane, the better, actually. So it's the end of that exercise. Now we're actually going to move on and we are going to re-interview. So we are going to share our solutions with our partners. We're going to put 2 minutes on the clock and we're going to do the same format as we did initially, where A will interview B and then we'll have another 2 minutes for B to interview A. So take 2 minutes, share your solutions, try and describe them, and just try and get feedback about how it might work in their context in terms of solving their problems and meeting their goals. This is 2 minutes each. So yeah, try and be really prompt. this
Alright, so yeah, we've got a big quote if you can.
Alright, so now we're gonna flip and have participant B interview participant A. And again, try and write down any findings or really relevant quotes that you find, that you hear, especially quotes.
What I got out of it was,
So again, I'm gonna put 2 minutes back on the timer.
I got a feeling that
Alright, so let's go ahead and wrap up the interviews. We're going to move on to the final solution. So at this stage, we're going to move on to the storyboard section, where we actually think about a final solution. We're going to reflect on our findings, we're going to reflect on our solutions, our initial interview, our second interview, and we're going to try and synthesize this into a single solution, our favorite solution, the most meaningful solution that we can come to terms with. And we want to think about the beginning, middle, and the end of this solution. So not only the actual user pain that it's solving, but how the user's finding it, how the terminus of the experience, where they're getting out, where they're finishing. So just try and think about all these stages. And if you can, imagine it as a storyboard. Basically, if you could draw your user actually going through these steps. Imagine you're like a film director. So I'm going to go ahead and put 3 minutes on the timer, and this is just spend this time individually thinking through this stuff. And if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we can give you any feedback or any insight that we possibly can. So this is a solution for your partner, to improve your partner's gift-giving experience. So So for example, if they really abhor waiting in lines, this might be a way to circumvent waiting in lines for your partner to have a better experience giving a gift. So we're just wrapping up. Final few seconds. Cool. So once you come to the final, once you're wrapped up, try and actually give your packet to your partner, and at this point they are going to analyze your solution. So at this stage, imagine you've actually released your product out into the wild and you're getting functionally qualitative survey feedback. So this final 4 questions is basically going to be a little bit of analysis on what you came up with, and you can kind of use that to iterate and continue going through this cycle and improving the product. The final page, yeah, this is one right after that, right? Go ahead and yes, exactly.
It's just more of an individual credit card.
So I think
Alright, so we've got about 30-45 seconds left, so try and get the last final responses in on your analysis. Alright, y'all, so that is actually the end of this exercise. And if the analysis and user feedback that you got back is incomplete, that's normal and fine. The part of the challenge of the next cycle that you'll run through will be making sense of that and finding actionables to move forward with. So this is at a very abstract and really rapid pace. This is kind of what we do in terms of measurement cycles. So literally designing an experiment, figuring out what we need to learn, and then at that stage, learning what we can and cycling through that. So ultimately, we would follow this with this measurement with a lot of learning and analysis, and there's a whole separate cycle for that. And again, this is just basically a measurement intensive cycle. So you'd follow this measurement intensive cycle with a more learning intensive cycle, which would again be that analysis. So if you want to check out a field guide to running qualitative user sessions, kind of hybrid discovery usability sessions, that you can learn some of the things kind of like this. We have a little bit of a guide that's up on our website. And there's also kind of a kit with some worksheets that you can use to define your tasks and define who you want to talk to, and then the questions that you might be asking in terms of screening out the right and the wrong people for your usability sessions. So again, thank you very much. If you all have any questions, we'd be happy to field them now. But I hope you guys have fun and learn something.